So, can AI do, strategy plus time applicable to AI as well? Well, to the AI itself, it doesn't matter. AI can't feel.
Yeah.
To the people dealing with it, depending on which side you are, problem side, solution side, maybe yes and maybe no. But we'll ask the experts also in the room. So good morning, everybody. Deepak Parmanan. I'm a director of product and AI at JP Morgan. I am honored to share the stage today with two experts from different domains who bring a fantastic mix of experiences. And as you can see, it's a smaller panel, and we're looking to have a conversation. So I have 4 to 5 questions, only 4 to 5 questions to ask, because I wanted to open it up to you to ask questions, to interact with us, and go on from there. So before I go on, I want to introduce the panel a little bit and have them introduce themselves. So to my right is Priya Chetri. She is a principal product manager at Skyscanner. Priya, you will introduce yourself?
Thanks, Deepak. But I must say, it feels very surreal to sit with you, face to face with you all, and especially because we're very used to our habits are very, very tuned to the virtual meetings, especially the eye contact aspect of it feels very surreal. As a stand-up comedian, I don't know if you felt that way when you had to do it virtually.
I mean, I love eye contact. I love feedback from people. So I definitely liked that yesterday. If you didn't watch it, you missed it, but come on next time.
So hopefully a couple of coffee shots has got my bearings back. But hi, everyone. My name is Priya Chetri. I am leading the product intelligence for our partners to empower them to basically get insights about the travelers, how they're behaving. I hope you have been or enjoying our Skyscanner app to plan your travel. So we basically, my team looks after the data and intelligence across advertising. And yeah, by means of AI and ML in our products. It's been a jolly good ride so far in Skyscanner. And before this, my career spanned 15 plus years. And mostly I have been in retail and travel e-commerce all along.
Excellent. I forgot to introduce myself, but I will after. Because the next person on my left has a very interesting profile. Remy Becher, he is Chief Product and Technology Officer. So talk about the heaven of problem and solution space. So I really want to ask him those questions. Like I said, we only have 4 or 5, but you should have him on next time to talk about that. So Remy, in however way you want to explain yourself, please introduce yourself to the team.
Yeah, I think you just like the fact that I get to mark my own homework.
Yes.
So yeah, Remy, I'm coming to the end of my 3rd week with Stepathlon. Stepathlon is a sort of a fitness and well-being app that meets fan engagement. So we do virtual races with like sports clubs, the likes of Manchester City and some other names. I've been in product for a while, but throughout different verticals. So now in fitness and well-being, previously in travel, and before that in publishing at The Economist. Very different sort of applications of AI and ML in those kind of different industries with very different outcomes. So, yeah.
Excellent. And kudos to the organizers for having us, different industries, different backgrounds, because this is where you benefit from the diversity. So my background, I started off in telecom, doing BI, then did churn prediction for them. Then I worked in due diligence, M&A due diligence, making that faster to NLP. Then naturally after that, I did computer vision for Microsoft. And now at JP Morgan, I'm doing reinforcement learning and working on deep neural networks. So the way we'll do the format is, I have 4 questions. I'll ask the questions to the panelists first. I'll answer it myself at the end. And then we'll go around the circle so that you get to hear my perspective as well. So I'll start off with the first one, which is, Priya, talk about your journey incorporating AI or ML into your products.
Sure. My journey rather has been very interesting. I would say almost an accidental product manager who found its way into AI. But largely I define that my professional life into 2 lives. Earlier in my profession, I was managing very large BPO operations back in India. And that's when I started off with being a data analyst, not so sexy profile, to then jumping on to understand how do we curate the content of these BPO operations, and used to build, back in those days, we used to call what you know today chatbot, used to call it predictive speech analytical platforms. So that's when I started to discover the sexy aspect of building such products. And when I got an opportunity in a consulting firm that was literally trying to find its foray into product as well, I started off in a very unconventional way as a research product manager, if you will, where literally I did not know what the product was, or I did not know who the users was, but we were literally told this is the set of problems in a very niche industry, which is our travel technology space for car rentals, for cruise, for hotels, for airline. So we literally started off with understanding what the problem space is, what impact as a business we want to make in this niche industry, and then starting to uncover as a result what are the various techniques we would need to deploy in terms of the models, in terms of the data understanding, to be able to understand, what are the use cases. And then that also led to us going out into the market and speaking to various users in that specific domain, and then obviously that led to me building some AI models, but also I was lucky that the consulting firm also chose to transition into being a product company. And I'm typically talking about RateGain, and that's where I started to also transform into a product manager with AI means of solving problems, with having ownership of a product as well.
Interesting. You said accidental, imposter syndrome, anyone? Same old. So it is possible. You start something, you get into something, and you love what you do. And it's interesting for me, the product manager profile is getting such big traction here. Back in the day, it was not so. It was like, this guy just talks. The engineers write code, the salespeople sell, what do you do? And then now, there's so much awareness and sensibilities around it, so that's good to hear. So thank you for that. It's interesting because you came from a consulting perspective where you didn't have that repeatability, scalability, but good to know that after that, it sort of came into a product being very interesting. So Remy, let me turn over to you now and say, what's been your journey incorporating AI ML into products?
Yeah, so I think for me it really started at The Economist when we were looking at subscription sales. So as a lot of people probably know, a traditional subscription business generally starts with like a trial subscription. So you can you put in your credit card details. You don't have to pay, but you get access to like a streaming service or a publication for like 30 days or however long. And then if you don't cancel, you will enroll into a full paid subscription. That sort of model was getting a bit old, and we were trying to explore some other ways that we could try to get people to engage with the content, understand what the brand was about, what they were going to get for their subscription, and then continue to pay for it. So we started to experiment, but also we're very sort of cognizant that a different audience from different backgrounds and different locations would have different needs. And we try to incorporate that. So could we say, for instance, if you come from, if we geolocate you to be in Manhattan, could we offer you a different kind of experience to get you to subscribe to if you come from, I don't know, somewhere in a more rural place in the US, for instance. So that propensity modeling, the propensity for someone to subscribe and offering different kind of experience for that is really where we started. So yeah, whether or not I give you a 24-hour free pass so you can browse unlimited amount of content, or whether or not I go like, you ought to be just subscribing straight away, here's a hard paywall, you go and have to pay. So yeah, that's really sort of the concept we came up with, and then you're going to start looking for technology to actually solve your problem, and then you quite quickly venture into AI, and can you feed all of your past subscription data and all of your past conversion data and all of your past lab subscribers into an algorithm that then tells you to say, okay, this individual Deepak looks like someone who ought to be subscribing to The Economist. You don't get a trial, here you go straight away, pay me the money.
Lovely. And as I'm listening to these people talk, I was like, before they came on, we didn't discuss these nuances in detail. I was thinking, how are they going to answer this? It seems so difficult and exotic. And as soon as they've explained it, of course that makes sense, right? It's the experts who make it look like it's so simple. So thanks for that. And it kind of makes sense that you sort of cast a wide net before, and then you sort of personalize to the right profiles and make sure people have the right experience. So in my case, it was a very clear switch in my mind. Like I said, back in the day, when I first made the switch to AI, I was a BI solutions architect. You know that thing called BI, business intelligence, dashboards, scorecards, all that fun stuff. So we were doing call detail record analysis for a very large customer in the US. Say, hey, how are people making calls? And the marketing team came to us and said, well, can you tell us if people are going to drop off? So what do you mean? Are people going to leave and churn away? We're like, yes, we can. We can do that. Remember, these charts have these trend analysis of calls dropping. You can draw a trend. They like that. Then they said, oh, let's go a little bit further and let's predict that thing. And it's like, opening a magic box full of tools. Math started to make sense. Equation of straight line, anyone? Y is equal to mx plus c. Differential equations, integration, all that made sense. And we hired a statistician. This was 2015. Statistician, very smart dude. And he's talking all these fancy terminologies, regression models. Just very unique for us. And then he came in and then he showed us how you can take your core transactional data about customers making calls. How can you build a logistic regression model out of it? How can you build variables and then predict 90 days ahead of time who is going to leave? So we went from BI to AI very, very clearly. And like I said, it seems like magic now, which seemed very hard back then because it didn't have the sort of impetus it had now. We had 200 million call detail records on Netezza. If anyone remembers that. You had to take those, you had to transform that. You went from 40 columns in the source data to like 500 variables. Then you do deduplication, principal component analysis. Then you figure out how many variables are there. Magical thing. But then at the end, you knew Deepak is going to leave. Priya is not going to leave. Remy might leave. And you'll have exact numbers like that. And then the people started asking the question, okay, how can we stop them? Because I was leaving for an entirely different reason. Remy was on the fence for a different reason. Priya was not going to leave at all. So then they decided, oh, customer segmentation is important. So it's very, very organic in my mind how that AI journey happened, and it was a fantastic success. I have other examples, but I want to get to the other questions as well, and then we'll come back if you want to know this. So we talked about your AI ML journey. Now, slightly making it more useful to the audience and dipping into your past a little bit. How do you get started? How do you get started in AI and product management?
Sure. So let me start off with a differentiation between a regular product life cycle and an AI-powered product life cycle. So the fundamentals remain the same of discovering, building, and then launching. However, the way you approach these three stages of a product development is slightly different with AI. So for AI, you have to obsess about the customer use case. You have to obsess about that. So it happens that in the regular product lifecycle as well. What the difference is that in the AI-powered product management, you need to be able to understand the business use case as well. What is that value that we want to bring to the business as a result of looking at a customer problem which may want to solve by means of AI? When I say business impact, it's also about, is my motivation to reduce cost? Is my motivation for customer delight? Is my motivation for commercial? So that has to be very nicely defined at the discover stage, because that starts to inform your approach towards building the trust in the AI solutions for your partners. And I have made mistakes in the past. I burnt my finger by totally being excited about the AI solutions and models, but not necessarily looking at how that has an emotional and a social, connection to our human users. So that's something which I definitely would like to say is starting off with the customer, the business impact, and then understanding what is important basically in terms of building the trust and the fairness. The second important stage when you're building is definitely understanding the data. So do we have the right data? What are the biasness in the data? The biasness typically is at a race and gender level, so we need to be able to remove the biasness in the data. We need to be able to invest in technology to have a very robust data warehouse, and then obviously look at cost-effective data model, which we can take it from the shelf and do some smoke and mirror testing before we start to look at deploying the model and looking at the testing. And then eventually you'll have the launch, and when you're launching these models, it's very important to have the iterative means of monitoring the performances, monitoring the accuracy. It's really the balance between the two, and that really makes the difference with the AI. And again, at the end of it, we should never, ever forget the human connection. The humans or the users whom we are building this AI product to really have to feel empowered by these solutions rather than feeling that, oh, Priya has launched a revenue management tool for hotels, which means the revenue manager's job is out of the door. That's not the case. It's just like in a kitchen, a master chef is not replaced by the smart blenders, right? They are basically to make them more efficient. So it's just the positioning and messaging of these tools which is absolutely key for increase in adoption.
I mean, interesting. I was not expecting a human aspect to an AI answer, but there you go. There's always that human in the loop and there's AI in the loop. You got to know who you're dealing with. So Remy, let me ask you this question now. What's your answer to this? How does someone not doing AI get started into an AI product management?
Well, I completely second what Priya was saying, is sort of start with the user, right? So, I mean, in my 3 different sort of use cases at Stepathlon, we're obviously trying to keep people motivated to be active on a frequent basis. I can't say daily basis, frequent basis. So each individual has different motivations or different times and different kind of habits. So that's a really good use case where AI can come in, right? I can analyze a customer's particular behavior, see how that matches other people's behavior, see what works, what kind of nudges, what kind of motivational tips, what kind of changes of habit works for them, and then see if I can hyper-personalize that for someone that is having difficulties staying active, for instance. I think at Cottrip, it was very much around like customer delight as well. I am reading an article about the top 10 hotels to stay in Edinburgh. The one that I would really like to stay at is actually unfortunately sold out. How do I make a really good recommendation to someone? And if I go like, well, what's the nearest hotel to the location of the hotel that is sold out? It could well be a Premier Inn. And if someone was looking at like a 5-star hotel, that's obviously not the recommendation they want. So again, look at what the customer is actually after. What is the intent, and make sure that you match the AI to that. And then again, at the Economist, I think a lot around the propensity modeling was also around engagement. So we knew that things like recency, frequency, and volume is really important. I think the FT has spoke about this publicly quite a lot. So it's like how recent was someone using your product? How long were they using your product for? And if those kind of things are really important, and especially mobile apps, if you see a particular behavior happen or not happen, how can you use AI and machine learning to sort of then encourage that behavior? And for us to go really back to sort of what can you do, there's some really good off-the-shelf sort of starting point. I'm a big fan of Google's Firebase platform, which allows you to plug it into mobile apps, for instance, send it data about events that are happening, and do that. You will have to train the model a little bit, but after a little while, it can then go and say, okay, people that are doing X, we're doing that because of Y, so therefore the people that are not doing that, can we get them to do that? And the built-in engine allows you to send out notifications or in-app triggers or all sorts of other things to sort of say, hey, have you seen this feature set, or have you watched this video, or have you read this article? And so those are some really easy sort of ways to really get some AI into your products as a starting point. But yeah.
Lovely.
Start with the customer.
Start with the customer. I mean, no-brainer. So my own experience, let's take the telecom example here, right? So the context was the marketing team came to us and said, we spend $1 million every month in running marketing campaigns, in retaining our customers. We have 6% churn against the industry average of 2%. How do we do this? We take your BI dashboards. We see people who have not made calls in the last 30 days, who have had the longest tenure, and who have the most expensive phones. And to all of them, we give them $10 coupons. Hail Mary. Hail Mary. Works. I'm sure it works. Terrible churn. So you're spending $1 million, you're targeting the wrong customers, you still have 6% churn. What did we do? We gave them so they were targeting, what about 200,000 customers? $5, yeah, 200,000 customers, $5 per customer. When they came to us, we said, okay, we'll give you the profile. We gave them a list of 400,000 customers who were going to churn with different levels of probability. Like I said, like if I get a flag 1, 90% probability. If Priya gets a flag 0, 20% probability of churn. And with Remy, 60%, coin flip. But what we also did was we gave them reasons why they were churning and how they could prevent it. For example, I could be churning simply because my contract is ending. Remy could be churning because network quality sucks. So not only did they know who is going to leave better than they did before, they knew what to do to prevent them. Like in this case, I was a goner. I was going to leave because my contract was over. The telecom provider, who shall not be named but has 3 letters in it, was going to lose me. So I was a gone case. But Remy had a future because call quality was bad for everybody in that vicinity. So it made sense for them to invest in that. So for Remy, they personalized the campaign. It is called Next Best Action. Our brethren over on the other side know exactly what I'm talking about. So when Remy called, or they reached out to Remy, they gave them a $5 coupon for sure, but we know that your call quality is bad. We know your network issues are bad, but we are solving it. And with me, they called me. They offered me $5. I was going to leave anyways. And they knew Priya was not going to leave, 20%. They still called her. Hey Priya, how are you doing? Checking in with you. Is everything all right? Your contract is out 6 months. You all right? Are we good? Are we doing well? So what it went from is the same business problem, but we added a lot more texture, a lot more detail, personalized this to say, okay, now you can see how AI and product management can help because you have the same product, but your information you're providing is different and the context is much richer now. You'll have a better conversation. So this kept on going. The key thing was the 1 million spend didn't come down because you never want to have the marketing team start to spend less because then they get a bad reputation, but they began targeting customers better. So the money was spent better, retention was better, and it started going down. We were at 4% when we last left. So 2% drop from 6%, big deal in telecom circles. All right, next question. So Remy, you make it sound so simple. I assume no challenges in AI and AI adoption in product management, no?
Well, I think Priya already touched upon. I think one of the biggest sort of challenges I think is it can be quite intrusive. I think there's something to be said about that serendipity is slowly dying in a corner as a result of algorithms, especially in in publishing and streaming and the content space, where just continuing to recommend things that are like something you've already seen or something you've already done, I think is not necessarily great. Now, should you use AI to combat that? That's a whole different panel. So I think that's an issue. I think what Priya touched upon is the bias. It will remain really hard to completely eradicate bias in AI, bias in society, bias in what society builds. So I think those are really, for me, the two biggest challenges going forward for product managers to really be mindful of.
Lovely. Bias is a whole different topic for me. One of my work at Microsoft was dealing with bias. So the question sort of we came up with was, against whom being biased are we okay? Like, does the ant care? I'm biased about the ant. Does the elephant care? Animals care? And that definition changes over a period of time, which is your definition of inclusivity. Is it okay to be biased against the person not on the panel, not in the room? Should we then go talk about every other person as well? So that definition broadens, and it's important that all of us speak against it or speak for it, because the conversation makes it richer. So, fantastic point. Bias. I mean, like I said, it's a whole different panel. Whole different panel. Priya, what about you? Any trouble in paradise with AI adoption?
Well, so biasness definitely is the foundation, right? But my perspective is also a couple of folds here. One is that AI naturally comes with this attention of for good AI, for better AI, for accurate AI, you need lots of data. And that starts to tussle when you have these recent changes in privacy laws. You look at the ATTP policies or ITPs, which is basically you're giving the customers, the users, the ability to protect their data. So what happens is, especially in AI-driven products where you need that data of the users for hyper-personalization that Remy was talking about, that starts to become very challenging. So there's always going to be this increased tussle of we need lots of data, but then you're not allowing for that to happen with these privacy policies and culture changes. But then with every great challenges comes an opportunity, doesn't it, to really start to look at, how do we look, for example, typically in our world of advertising that we are trying to bring about for our partners is all about, we don't have data for at the user level, so what? There is this ability of doing behavioral targeting, contextual targeting. So let's look at how the travelers, let's label them in clusters, and let's look at how are they behaving, the homogeneous versus heterogeneous. So they're means of, again, bringing in this innovation to the challenges. So that's one challenge about how do we balance the act between privacy and the want for huge data. But the other elephant in the room, which I personally have been facing all the time, is organization not investing enough in their data cloud technologies. So AI, to have an intelligent AI, your core ingredient, which is data, absolutely has to be in a healthy state, in a complete stage. So I sometimes feel that also adds on to the bias, right? So if you don't have enough data, when your sampling is poor, when you don't have the right statistical significance, it starts to create that biasness. So it's kind of always has this intertwined effect to biasness and then the protection of the data.
Fantastic. You're right. And as I was thinking, I'm reminded of a quote by Peter Drucker, I think. If I'm wrong, it says, culture ate strategy for breakfast and transformation for lunch. I actually lived that experience in an organization, in a role, so I have very painful flashbacks of culture and strategy, because they're like, oh, we should have an AI strategy. Oh no, we should have a data culture first. How are you even capturing the data? Is it sitting somewhere in a silo, not clean, not loved, not touched? How are you going to learn about your customers? What do they do? Where do they live? How do they use the product? They don't even have telemetry. I mean, I think my next keynote should just be about telemetry. It's such a poor, sad cousin who's never talked about all the time. But it's so important because you should know how your product is being used. Amplitude, so many other products, good examples of it. But you need to know. If a customer faces an error, you need to know. Not them yelling at you on Twitter as soon as it happens, because you know what's happening. You need to tell the whole story for it. So yes, data for sure, that's been my experience. Data strategy is important. Data culture is important, because you can have the strategy all you want. You have a bad culture who doesn't support that thing, you're not going to get very far. Painful experience here. Lastly, importantly, AI is very, like I said, even for me now, 2015 to now, it's catching up quite a bit. So I'm usually only taking AI jobs. So I don't go to places where AI is not part of the curriculum. So I don't know what the push of the boulder against the mountain is. But I test for these things, right? For example, is this a fancy thing you want to do? Or is it a real problem you're looking to solve? Then maybe there is hope. And most of the time, executives tell me, oh, we're looking for top line growth. I'm like, do you have even bottom line visibility? Why is saving costs such a bad thing to talk about? Saving productivity is such a bad thing to talk about. Why do you have to always go for the top of the funnel? Because you can build up from the front. You can build from the ground up, build trust, empower your employees, your partners, and then go from the top. Oh no, we're going to do a slam bang approach. Usually doesn't work. So whatever these people said, please remember that, because those are the things you need to ask yourself, to the team and the company you're going for. Because if the answer is no to them, they're not doing AI, or they won't do AI very fast. All right, challenges and the problems there. Now, 2 more questions, then we'll open up to the audience. How are we doing for time?
15 minutes.
15 minutes. Oh, lovely, excellent. So you'll have a lot of time to ask us questions. So The next questions I was going to ask you was, we all have worked across industries, right? So the next question for me is, how have you seen AI and adoption in products across your different industries? What's been your experience?
Oh, that's I know you were going to ask it, and it's still a tough question. I think some of it we're already touched upon. I think they started really off with what I said, right? It's like it's behavior of a customer that we're seeing or not seeing that we want to influence. And that's very sort of factual. I think as data sets grow, I'd like what you said about efficiencies as well, right? There's lots of organizations and companies that are sitting on enormous amount of data that can, if they were to interpret it properly, can drive some really good decision making and some real good efficiencies. I mean, one example that I came across a while back, which I still find fascinating, is if you look at Highways England, they obviously have a lot of sensors in the roads that they use for signage and all sorts of things. So if there's a queue building, that they slow down the traffic, so the queue dissipates earlier, and all these kind of things. And at the same time, like garages are all linked together as well, often. So if you know those two things, and you sort of start to say, okay, if I link cars coming into garages or cars breaking down on roads for particular reasons, and map that over my route network, can I then all of a sudden say, oh, we seem to have an awful lot of potholes or other things in the cracks in the road, because I see all of these cars come in with either broken suspension or tire problems. So all of this data is available, which can then mean that they know where they need to sort of put the resources, and not just like, I don't know, because this stretch of road hasn't been looked after for the last 5 years, therefore it now needs to be looked after. They can actually really, in a targeted way, put the teams where they need to. So I think those kind of examples for where efficiency can really be improved by using specifically machine learning here are all there. I hope that answers your question.
It does. And when I think about roads and cars suspension, efficiency is not what I thought about, but it's good to have someone like you with the reverse background here to say, that's how the dots got connected. Yeah. So thanks, great insight. So over to you, Priya. How have you seen AI adoption across your different domains you worked in?
So from my experience of working with various enterprising companies, really the AI adoption is relative to what problem or the business case they're trying to address. So there's a concept of AI inside versus AI first. Yeah. So I'll give you an example of my industry that I worked in, specifically hotels. So in hotels, we have built technology. So there are some hotels who say that we don't really need to be AI first, but we would love to have it, from your example of the business intelligence tools that you were working on, that we have business intelligence tool, but what we would love to know about is the recommendations of how do we improve the experiences of these travelers who are coming into our hotels. So that's where you transition from building AI engines within your revenue management system or within your property management system, where it starts to surface what are the key offerings or deals you might want to give to a certain set of the users. Now, there are some niche hotels. I'm not sure if you have heard about this hotel in Japan, a city called Nagasaki, where the complete hotel is operated by robots. So that really is an AI first. So what AI first really is, the indicator is, just for the audience, is if your product breaks, if your AI breaks, does that break your complete product? And that is the measure of AI first. Now, this hotel has somewhat found this niche space for that specific market, for that specific premium community who want to be able to go into a hotel where they would like to be greeted by only robots or all automatic systems. But that necessarily is not the use case for some other hotels in other markets. So again, it's very, very driven by what are the niche business use cases you're addressing. But then there are also some common business problems, like, for example, in call centers, you're looking at how do we increase the efficiency of our services, and that's when you have chatbots, that's when you have virtual assistants. So again, it's all based on the relative use cases.
Fantastic. And as you were saying, AI first, the first clear definition I had in my mind was Alexa, because if Alexa breaks down, it's a box.
Yeah.
It's a box. And who wants to talk to a box? So Amazon, you should give credit for making it not weird to talk to a box. So what's been my experience in the AI journey across domains? So I would say it's how much of digitally first they are. Because if you're digitally first, you're data first, and you're doing some kind of analysis with data. For example, in the example he gave, there was some knowledge, some incentive for doing subscription properly. In my case in telecom, they were doing it in spreadsheets, but they were not digitally nomadic. There was some form of digitalization and data in there. So that's important. Second thing is, look at the ones, industries, at least the one I looked at in was, how fast are they getting disrupted? Telecom, not so much. But what they didn't anticipate was people just don't make calls right now. Or if they do, they make it on WhatsApp. They didn't see that coming. And if they saw that coming, how would they have gone against WhatsApp? Quite hard to go imagine that. So those kind of disruptions won't happen, but you can sort of foresee that if an industry, the M&A due diligence I was talking to you about, they were looking at automating due diligence and doing the stuff with AI, the dumb and boring stuff that the attorneys have to do. That kind of makes sense, because who wants to double-click documents day in, day out and copy-paste common phrases, copy it to another document? Nobody wants to do that. You didn't get this much education and intelligence, and you went to a famous 3-letter university, which I will not name, to come and do double-clicking. You didn't want to do that. So that kind of AI adoption made sense. But again, not by strategy, by culture. Culture first. Culture first. Strategy comes and goes, culture first. All right, one last question for both of you and myself. This is something all of you would be interested to hear. So, future of AI, Remy, good or bad? Scared, happy?
On the fence, I think. I think for the reasons that I already sort of said. I think when applied in the right domains and for the right use cases, I think it could be good. Like if machine learning, and like there's an interesting question there around data models. If data sets around, say, healthcare, and I know that's a challenging kind of domain, but if these things, the fitness trackers, if all of that data is sort of collected in an anonymized way and fed into large enough algorithms, they can predict things, right? They can predict illness, they can predict certain things. So I think healthcare is an excellent domain where I think AI could really make a difference. But it's also in other things. I know a lot of AI is already used in the agricultural sector, where if you've got enough data around, I don't know, crop farmers and how they treat their land, or when they sow their crops, or how much water they give them. If you can increase yield, then obviously you can take away food scarcity and all these kind of things. If we can find ways to reduce like how much water we need to produce our food, so there's all of these kind of really difficult societal issues that I think will only become harder and harder. And if you focus AI on those kind of areas, I think you can do some really good things. I think the bad things is the stuff that I've already talked about, right? If you reduce human choice down to what an algorithm tells you, then I think we're not going down the right way. So that's the balance for me.
So the quote I remember is now, serendipity dies slowly in a corner.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm going to remember that. So Priya, how about you?
I'm actually pretty excited about AI, and it's not about if, but it's all about when. And some experts would say that in the next 10 years, you'll mostly see all companies adopting some forms of AI in their value work flows. I'm sure you must have read about McKinsey's recent study that said that those companies who are set to adopt some form of AI in their workflows by 2025 stand to become the world economic leaders by 2030, and the increased cash flow increase of 120%. So that statistic is quite telling, isn't it? So I would say that that excites me about two things. It excites me about the opportunities that those of the audiences or people who are aspiring to come into the AI world, to become product managers in the AI world, or the product managers who are already in the AI world looking at their growth trajectory. I think that's pretty exciting. And second thing, obviously, the solutions and the problems we get to solve. Healthcare is definitely one which I'm passionate about as well, but education is something which is absolutely critical. I have a 5-year-old at home, and it just excites me to look at the tools that may be available to her, which are more interactive in nature. They're able to make her understand the application of concepts into the real life, versus looking back at how back in India, I used to be just looking at my boring books and trying to figure out the application. So yeah, AI to me is a very exciting future, and looking forward to some major innovation changes there.
Lovely. So I think I should have gone next, and then I should have had Priya at the end to sort of lift you up. So I'm actually not very optimistic. Not very optimistic because if you look at history, we've actually screwed up quite a lot. Right? If you look at our scorecard, our history, our mark sheet, actually not done very well. I mean, women have a seat very, very. We just talked about women as individuals quite late in life, and look back now and says, what kind of idiots were we? I mean, come on. Look at all the history we've had. So, when you put internet in a place, guess what people want to do first? Exactly. So we've not had a good history. We've not had a good background of not screwing. We screw up first and then we course correct. With AI, what I'm worried about is without moderation, without people actively talking, engaging, arguing, discussing, we'll actually screw it up even more badly. Because the course correction is going to be super hard. Because you're going to have so many people with such smart knowledge capturing and doing AI, everybody should speak up. You see the push for EU, the data regulation. You see the EU pushing back on Elon Musk for Twitter. All that is important. It is very, very important because even in Elon Musk's own words, if you look at his interviews, he says, thank God there is somebody else trying to push the barrier on this, because left to us, we'll go unchecked. So there is regulation required. And you and me, everybody must have this conversation, must talk, must push back, and thank God for democracy. If you had the Democrats or Republicans have their one way or the other, it's going to be bad. That's what democracy works. You should have an opinion. That's why one vote for everybody works, not based on intellectual ability, but by ability that you're human. It's important. So that debate is important. History, looking back at history, we have not done a good job. But the future, if at least something, we have to learn from it, engage, criticize, comprehend, argue, fight, and make sure we do it right. Because, quantum is coming. Blockchain has not even started. AI, it's going to be super hard if you don't have the right set of tools. All right, so we'll go some audience questions. We have, 5 minutes left. So I don't want to, other than all of us answer all questions, what I would say is, have your pick. Which question do you think makes more sense for you to answer, and you can answer that?
Yeah, I'll take the top one, because it gives me the opportunity to roll out my favorite sort of ML anecdote as well. I think like a defense department of a country tried to train an algorithm to spot tanks in photos, and so the photos were sourced, like crowdsourced, and they were trying to work out if there was a tank in the photo, and half the time the algorithm actually worked and identified a tank, but half of the time it didn't, and they were trying to work out why that was. And it turned out that they trained the algorithm with tanks, photos of tanks taken on cloudy days. So rather than having an algorithm able to sort of detect tanks, they created an algorithm that was able to detect cloudy days, and tanks in sunshine it completely missed. So going into the more serious point of that, like how do you train a model quickly? I think it's about combining data sets, right? So you'll have a lot of data about your customer or your particular problem domain, But these days, there's so much data that is available in the public domain that you can use for these kind of things. It's all anonymized, but there's extensive data sets. So try to find out what question you're trying to answer that you can't with your own data set, and then go on the hunt for external data sets that you can match your own data with, and use that. And then you do have to keep training those algorithms. So you have to keep refreshing those data sets. That can be a challenge, because the large data sets that you will find in the public domain are unfortunately not always updated that frequently. So that's a challenge.
Lovely. Priya, do you want to take any?
I'll go for the second one. Any tips on motivating the team to productionize models and solutions? We don't have currently AI. I'll just double click on what I said earlier is about it all has to start with your customers' business cases. What problems are they really facing? What is the business impact that you want to make? And see if you want to solve that problems by means of AI. So AI, does that help? So once you understand the business impact, and let's say that is that of cost reduction, you start to really look at, do I have the data? Can I leverage the data that we have to be able to, and then if you have a product, you definitely have data, right? You'll have the data of those products that is being used by the customers. So you basically start to look at that data, you basically start to leverage if by means of artificial intelligence, can you bring about efficiency and for your products. It does sound scary, to be very fair, and that's how I also started with some of my products. But then once you have a very compelling business case, a very clear measure of that one metric that you really want to move to show the success, and you have the initial buy-in from your stakeholders, the executives, it starts to become easy for you to work. And when I say easy, again, it's still an uphill task, because you have to really work with the data scientists and data engineers to start to look at what could be those quick win solutions. And then the another thing with the AI solutions is we never ever want to go with sophisticated AI models, right? It can always start off with a simple Bayesian models. You do some quick testing and see how the models are performing. So there are these quick wins, like off-the-shelf products, model AIs, which can help the data scientists as well. So that could enable you to test and see if that is for you.
Excellent. We are out of time. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity. And thank you, Priya. Thank you, Remy. Fantastic. Thank you.